Hello, welcome to yet another episode of War. And as we have been discussing war, especially in this area where Indian subcontinent, and we have already discussed some of the great wars of India. So let us begin. Let us also find out then why wars are. Some philosophers says that wars are inevitable, and some say that they are not. It is very essential to have war because that brings changes in the scenario, that brings a technological development that enhance the economy. But few philosophers, they say that wars can be avoided because there are some other parameters like diplomacy, going for a discussion, finding out the pacification where there is a conflict. So whatever is the cause, but I will be discussing about the wars, and these wars actually shaped the Indian subcontinent political and economic aspect, and you can actually see all those effect even today in the modern times. So today's discussion point is regarding the when two major kings collides. These are Cheras and Chola power struggle. Very interesting phase of Indian history, and I'm sure that people who understand, who have read about these dynasties, Cheras and Cholas, they have, beside the war, they have given many cultural and economic development. So that is something very interesting to really read, to witness the contribution of these two dynasties. But then definitely there is a power struggle. So today we will be discussing when two major kings, two major dynasties collide. So the Cheras and Chola conflict could be actually termed as the rivals of Sangam Age, which is very prominent phase of Indian history. The Chera-Chola struggle for Southern Supremacy, and this prolonged conflict actually continued from 2nd century BC to the 2nd century CE, a major time line for this conflict, and was defined as a feature of early Tamilakam politics. It wasn't just a military rivalry, it is a contest to control over the trade routes, cultural prestige and influence across India and further. So Chera-Chola conflict, definitely a hallmark for early South Indian history, and was driven of a mix of strategies, economic and political ambition. But what are the causes of these major conflicts? So let's discuss these major conflict. First is control over the fertile river deltas. As you know, South India has one of the major river, which is Kaveri, and other river deltas were agriculturally very rich. So if we are controlling this area, that is crucial, and as well as that will sustain a large population and armies. Regarding those, so there's a kind of having support a system of agriculture for a larger population. The dominance of these land actually meant food security, and of course economic strength, economic development. So now there was one other major aspect is like enhancing or maybe controlling the maritime trade route. So both dynasty had a thriving port cities like Mussoorie for the Cheras and Punar for Cholas. So control over coastal region and ports meant definitely, even today also, access to lucrative trade. And earlier in those times, there was lucrative trade, which was already going on with Rome and Southern Eastern Asia and beyond. So then definitely a war actually brings a territorial expansion, and this war again was not new to territorial expansion. And when there's a territorial expansion, there's a prestige of dynasties of kings are also involved. Now the Sangam age was marked by the intense rivalry among the Cheras and Cholas and of course Pandyas. Then each sought to expand their influence and assert the supremacy in Tamilakam and leading to frequent clashes. So these are one of a few of the major points, but there was definitely a very major conflict, which is cultural and political rivalry. So, you will actually feel maybe different because we had been discussing war in earlier episodes also. But here, the new thing is the rivalry also was within the cultural aspect of the civilization or cultural aspect of the dynasty. So patronage of poet and temples and scholar was a matter of prestige for both the dynasties, Cheras and Cholas. The dynasty was competing not just on a battlefield but also cultural arena, and that was another one point which was fueling the causes of war among them, and that is why all these aspects actually bring a conflicting mindset of that era among the dynasty, these two dynasties. Now, what are the consequences? Definitely, with the Cheras and Chola conflict, there was a major consequences of these battle. The Chera and Chola conflict had those consequences which shaped political, economic, cultural landscape of ancient South India. So then there was a shifting political boundaries, also one of the consequences, because ultimately, though there was a long struggle between Cheras and Cholas, but then these prolonged warfare led to fluctuating territory control. Sometimes it was Cheras, sometimes it was Cholas, and they always actually into this conflict of having supremacy on these territories, but neither of side actually achieved any permanent dominance, and both experience the period of ascendancy, the period of multiple time shifting the boundaries, multiple time of controlling the political boundaries. So that is also one of the major consequences of this war. And it's really, really very interesting to go through these wars and go through the cultural upliftment or cultural development of that era, even with Cheras dynasty, under Cheras dynasty. And of course, everybody knows about Cholas and their dominance, not only in South India, but further ahead in Southeastern Asia. There are many countries which are covered in this expansion spirit. Now, there were, despite of conflict with both the kingdoms, but in spite of that, they have invested heavily in the naval power. Their rivalry actually was also developing, putting more money on port and maritime infrastructure, boosting trade across Indian Ocean with South Asia, Rome, and China. So then that is very interesting aspect of this conflict is cultural flourishing of that particular area. When we discuss Cholas and Cheras, they have immensely contributed in the rise of cultural patronage. Both dynasties supported Tamil literature, temple architecture. There was, if you understand, if you know about South Indian history, there's a major role which is played by temple, and that's why there you will find the mention of temple economy also. So temple architecture, religious institution leading to golden age of Sangam poetry and Dravidian art. So even today also you witness these kind of cultural flourish impact on South India. Of course, you will find the evidence in whole of India, but we are covering the Cheras and Cholas, so I will be discussing regarding that. Then the major consequence of these wars, Chera-Chola conflict, is rise of Cholas. Now, Cholas, especially under rulers like Raj I, eventually gained the upper hand, and they captured the Chera's key territories like Mahodayapuram, which was actually capital of Cheras, and they expanded their influence into Sri Lanka, Southeastern Asia, laying the groundwork for an imperial phase. And that is again very interesting to really understand, to read about the imperial phase of Chola dynasty, because they have a huge territories and they maintained it really well, not only in India, but as I mentioned, it was South Asia, Sri Lanka. So that's very interesting chapter of Chola dynasty. Now, once there's the rise of Chola, definitely the consequences also deal with the decline of Chera. The Chera weakened by repeated invasion. Then there was the internal strife also. There was internal tension also, and gradually they lost their prominence. Their alliance with the Pandyas against the Cholas actually backfired. So against Cholas, and by 12th century, their political relevance actually significantly diminished. But yes, cultural impact is really linger on for many more centuries. Which I mean, even Guptas, they also incorporated their cultural enhancement. What are the main figure involved in Cheras and Chola conflict? Very interesting to really know about this. Now, the Chera-Chola conflict featured several prominent rulers who were ambitious, and their rivalry shaped the political landscape of ancient Tamilakam, or ancient India, or South Eastern and Sri Lanka. That is also. So they are the key figures. First, let me discuss about the prominent figures of Chola dynasty. Now, Chola dynasty, when we take, we have Karikala Chola from 1st century to 2nd century CE, one of the earliest and most celebrated Chola ruler. Known for his military power, construction of grand honeycut on Kaveri River. He also led campaign against both Cheras and Pandyas, asserting Chola dominance in this region. Then there comes Raja Chola first, and a transformative figure, we can say a very enlightened despot of that area, or that era actually, and a transformed figure in the later Chola history. He launched a successful military campaign against Cheras, including capture of Mahodayapuram, the Chera capital. He marked the actually beginning of Chola imperial expansion. So that is a very, very interesting aspect of phase of Indian history. And Chola dynasty also. After that, Rajendra Chola first, who was the son of Raja I, he continued his father's legacy by expansion of Chola influence in southern India, and as well as Southeast Asia, and further weakening Chera as a ruling entity in South India. Now let's also discuss, we have to discuss about Chera dynasty and their profound ruler also. Udayan Chera-Latan was the early Chera ruler mentioned in Sangam literature, known for his resistance against Chola advances, Chola dynasty. Then Sanguta I Chera, who actually ruled around the 2nd century CE. He is also celebrated into Tamil epic, Tamil literature. He is being credited with military campaign in north and establishment of Patini cult. So he is also a celebrated king of Chera dynasty. He also said to be had a conflict with Chola during his time. So he also is being considered as a very profound and great king. Then there was Bhaskar Ravi Varman, which is again a very prominent ruler of Chera dynasty, a later Chera ruler who actually faced Raja Chola first, and during the Chola invasion of Kerala. So so these are few prominent names in these dynasty, and of course Chera and Cholas conflict. So what are the major battle? Because as we have discussed that this conflict actually extended for a longer time. So they have definitely saw several rivalry and small or big wars in this area, especially during the Rajaraja Chola first and his successor later on. So there are some major battle of this conflict which need to be mentioned. First is Kantalur Salai. This was a pivotal early clashes where Raj-Chola attacked and destroyed Chera military academy at Kantalur Salai. So that marked the beginning of opening of hostility and symbolized the Chola challenges. They challenged to Chera military prestige. Then there was a Battle of Udaigiri fought in present-day Kanyakumari, which this actually brutal battle saw Cholas under Rajaraja I, and they have actually destroyed this fortification of Cheras, and they set ablaze and returned with gold, elephants, and prisoner. And this triggered by Chera king's detention of Chola envoy. So one of the major incidents during this Chera and Cholas conflict. Now, the other was the important aspect is capture of Mahodayapuram Rajaraja Chola by Rajaraja Chola, and later launched a campaign that led to the capture of Mahodaya, which is actually, we have already mentioned, it was the capital of Chera, Chera dynasty capital, and this was a major blow to Cheras, and that marked a turning point in the Cholas' dominance over India, over other prominent region of South Asia. Countries. These battles were not just a territorial expansion, and this is the battle of prestige. This is the battle of trade supremacy, and this was a battle of cultural influence of the dynasty, of the culture, of the traditions of one particular dynasty. So we have already discussed about Cheras and Chola's conflict, and I just revising is the impact of these conflict, especially on South India. So definitely first is political and economic, and there was a political consolidation of one dynasty, which is Chola dynasty, and since there was a prolonged warfare between Cheras and Cholas. So this also led to the shifting alliances and shifting of territorial boundaries in many times. While the Chera initially actually were in a strong position, but the part of Western Tamil Nadu, the Chola, especially under Karikala and later Rajaraja I, gradually asserted their dominance. So this laid the groundwork of Chola Empire and rise as a pan-South Indian power, influencing not only India but Sri Lanka, as we have already mentioned, Southeast Asia. Then there was definitely impact of naval expansion, which is very prominent during Cheras and Cholas, but dominance of naval expansion was actually was controlled later on by Chola dynasty, and Chola developed that is Kaveri Pattam, which is Puhar, which is a port, which was major port, while the Chera controlled the Missouri and Toni, that was again port. So their rivalry over coastal access and dominance actually accelerated, and eventually somebody who would like a Chola, who gained into international trade with Rome, Arabia, Southeast Asia. So turning India into a very much trading hub or maybe a maritime power house during this Cholas dynasty dominance. Then definitely there was a cultural and literacy renaissance, we can say very well, which is very prominent under Chola dynasty. The competition extended into cultural patronage. Both dynasty actually supported Sangam poets, and it's very wonderful to really read those literature to find out the kind of presentation of artistically poet, as well as when we go into the Tamil literature, it is very profound and it's very interesting. So, of course, the temple architecture, which is even now, it is very popular. Many people around the world, they come and they really appreciate the kind of architecture patronage or architectural advancement is being done as compared to that era. The cultural rivalry enriched Tamil literature and left behind a legacy of inscription, epic, and of course monuments. And so this is a very, very prominent phase of Indian political, economic, and cultural development. There was definitely military innovation by just going through the kind of commander, the Raja Chola, or for that matter Rajendra Chola. They have actually contributed in military innovations and strategy. So, and there was definitely a military advancement, including the development of fortified cities, cavalry unit, naval fleets. The Chola in particular built a formidable navy that later actually helped them in expansion overseas. So then there's one major impact, or we can discuss, is the rise of new power and decline of Cheras. That became inevitable since actually there were Chola who actually consolidate their advancement, they consolidate their victory and political expansion, territorial expansion. So over the period of time, due to internal unrest, due to repeated defeat of Cheras, eventually they declined, and that created a power vacuum. And later that was filled by Pandyas, and of course later by Vijayanagar Empire. And again, it was again a pattern, or again one step ahead of shaping political map of South India. In essence, if we say Chera-Chola conflict was actually forged South India's imperial ambition and maritime legacy, and definitely a cultural brilliance. So these two dynasties, very interesting. If you get time to really read and understand the kind of contribution Chola dynasty has done, it will be really good. And I also feel that even in the Indian school text, the Chola's contribution to Indian culture and tradition has to be actually discussed in a profound way, because that is one of the most powerful ancient Indian dynasty and area, and we still actually appreciate, and we still have a few aspects of our cultural tradition which is being actually captured or maybe controlled or impact by Chola dynasty. And this is Chera and Chola conflict has given or made a way to establish that cultural and traditional impact of Indian culture. So for today, this much. We'll be meeting again in the next episode of War. So all the best. See you again. Take care of yourself really well. Bye-bye. See you.